You're good.
I got a question for you, Turtleboy, and for Dave. I think I'm going to stump you both. Do you know who Fernandez Bowman is? Maybe
Doesn't ring a bell.
Doesn't ring a bell. Dave, do you know that? Take a guess who Fernandez Bowman is. I think it's a name, a person that people who are very much upset, invested in the Breonna Taylor story should know. Just because I find it to be an interesting little factoid about Breonna. Anything? Anybody?
Oh, was he the Connect?
No. Well, in 2006, that'd be 4 years ago, 2016, young Breonna Taylor, 22 years old. Her, life. She was studying to become a X-ray technician. She was on the right path. Everything was going great. Cops found a body in Breonna Taylor's trunk, a dead body. It belonged to Fernandez Bowman. Fernandez Bowman's brother was an accomplice with Lou Jamarcus Glover, the drug dealer boyfriend, now later became his ex-boyfriend of Breonna Taylor. Now, she said she didn't know Fernandez Bowman. Cops didn't charge her with anything, but I'm reading up as some people do when they want to understand a story, when they want to understand what's going on here in the biggest story in the country. I'm just reading up and I stumble across that and I stop and I say, she's 22 and they find a body in her trunk. I thought she wasn't involved in any of this stuff. You read on. And again, I recommend this for everybody, for you guys, for Jaylen Brown, for what's the ESPN reporter's name, the 25-year-old?
Malika Andrews.
Malika Andrews. We'll get to Malika, a member of the media who's covering the NBA and who's talking a lot about Breonna Taylor with NBA players. And I think she'd be better at her job if she read up and really understood the story and understood who Jamarcus Glover is and why police had a warrant for Breonna Taylor's apartment. But I'm just going to say this. I thought the most dishonest narrative, the biggest lie I've ever seen when it comes to these stories of civil unrest and outrage was Michael Brown. We know Michael Brown. We know the whole story was a lie. He didn't have his hands up. He didn't say, hands up, don't shoot. He wasn't shot in cold blood by Darren Wilson. He tried to kill Darren Wilson. Darren Wilson shot in self-defense, killed Big Mike Brown, who just before that robbed a grocery store and assaulted the owner, was nothing but trouble. And Barack Obama and Eric Holder investigated thoroughly and said Darren Wilson was justified. It was a big lie. That big lie led to the city of Ferguson burning down. Michael Brown's own father said, burn the bitch down. All over the country. Remember, everyone on The View put their hands up all over the country. LeBron James had the shirt, hands up, don't shoot. It was a big lie.
It was a good one.
I don't know if this, I think, Turtleboy and Dave, I think this could be worse. This could be more dishonest. This narrative that has led to civil unrest all over the country, particularly in Louisville, that led to 2 cops being targeted and shot in an assassination attempt. And all I've heard all night, last night, I stayed up late watching, I can't stop, and this morning was what an injustice this was. And my question to those people, to Jaylen Brown and to LeBron James and to Malik Anderson is, do you understand? Have you read up? Do you know the story? Do you know what happened?
Of course not. All they can say is justice for Breonna Taylor. Justice for Breonna Taylor. Black Lives Matter. These people are very simple-minded. They're not
the most shallow thing. And here's the thing that drives me nuts. I expect it from people like LeBron James, who said people like LeBron, when they leave their house, they're being hunted. I saw a couple of interviews. One guy said it's open season on black people in America, and we're not safe anywhere. He was a PhD, and he was on MSNBC. He said, "We're not safe in our own homes. We're not safe." I'm like, "You're not safe. You're a college professor. You're on TV right now. You look pretty safe." But anyway, the whole narrative is just riddled with lies. And initially, like everyone else, and I'm sure you said, this is awful. She was in her apartment. She was asleep in her bed. I had people telling me that last night. tweeting at me saying she was asleep in her bed.
Yeah, that's the big difference between her and Mike Brown is that Mike Brown was, committing a crime and she was just allegedly lying in her sleep, or so sleeping in her bed rather, or so the story goes. I haven't seen any evidence of that, but regardless,
she wasn't asleep in her bed. That's not true. Right.
So let me play devil's advocate.
I mean, you follow Rex Chapman, right? Rex Chapman,
unfortunately,
big tweeter, very popular tweeter. He steals other people's videos and posts them and gets a lot of love on Twitter. Big liberal, hates Trump, hates Mitch McConnell. Last night, he was saying, never forget the cops went to the wrong house. The wrong house. He's right. He writes it twice. How long have you been following this story?
That was the story I heard first, but I don't think that's true.
Yeah, 4 or 5 months ago? And then you read a couple of articles, you Google it. I got this incredible investigative report by a local TV station, WCSC in Louisville. It's got all kinds of details, and they didn't go to the wrong house. I mean, she was handling the money for this hardcore drug dealer, Jamarcus Glover, her ex-boyfriend.
If she wanted to go mainstream and legit, and she's like a EMT and all this stuff, what kind of EMT launders drug money?
Whoa. What are you talking about? Launders. See, here's what pushes me over the edge, Turtle. And I got to admit, I'm not handling this well.
Am I using the wrong word?
No, you're not. She laundered drug money. Yeah. She handled. They have the recordings of the phone calls from prison of her ex-boyfriend. She handles the money for Jamarcus Taylor and others. By the way, G was supposed to have $14,000 of his drug money. He tells another person in a phone conversation. Bree got down like 15 grand. She had the 8 grand I gave her the other day, and she picked up another 6 grand. He's talking about his drug money.
Yes.
And you know what? This doesn't make her, that doesn't justify the shooting by any means. But why do we have to lie? Why do we have to come up with this fairy tale? Why can't people like Jaylen Brown and LeBron James and Malik Anderson and Steve Kerr, why can't they just read the stuff I'm reading, you're reading, and just understand the story? You could still say,
well, Steve Kerr in his defense is still trying to read up about China. Remember he said he's going to read about China?
Yeah,
he's going to find out about Mao and stuff like that. I don't know if he's come back with a book report yet, but
the Uyghur Muslims, he's still trying to figure out how to pronounce Uyghur.
Very busy. Yes.
He's busy coaching, but
did I lose you?
Be very passionate about. If you want to be outspoken, if you want to be kind of a spokesman for your side in this, is it asking too much that you understand the story, that you understand the facts of the story, that you know she wasn't asleep in her bed, that you know they didn't go to the wrong house, that you understand her boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, shot first? Is that too much to ask, that you understand how many of the people who were trashing Louisville or New York City last night, for that matter, or DC, understand that her boyfriend shot a cop and the cops fired back? Is that asking too much, that you understand that you?
All right. So devil's advocate here, Jerry, can I do a reamer? Jerry,
sure.
You're supposed to be a Republican. Republicans believe in self-defense and exercising your Second Amendment rights. That's all he did. He literally protected his property when some strange man who didn't even knock, by the way, came in and he shot them.
Okay, Reamer, they did knock. They did identify themselves. We learned.
How do you know, Jerry? Were you there?
Well, Daniel Cameron said there's an independent witness who corroborated the story that they knocked and identified themselves.
Well, he's probably racist.
Kenneth Walker shot them, hit Jonathan Mattingly, the cop, Jonathan Mattingly, who shot back 6 times. By the way, Miles Cosgrove, the other cop, shot 16 times and killed her. She was shot 6 times. The kill shot was fired by Miles Cosgrove. No charges. The idiot who got charged. And by the way, can I get some credit here, Cullinane? I've been saying for months that they're going to indict one cop for a lesser charge. And they did exactly that. It was pretty obvious if you read up that they were going to charge this guy, Brett Hankinson, because they already fired him. They already decided there was negligence. and they're just going to charge him with this wanton recklessness because he shot wildly from the parking lot,
which is
almost out of control.
Which is almost probably the reaction is worse because everybody feels like that's just a slap on the wrist that they added to appease people. Don't you think?
But he would be if I had a chance to sit down with Jaylen Brown or whoever, Steve Kerr, I would say, you understand that if the grand jury, by the way, we believe a multiracial grand jury. We're not sure, but we believe it's a diverse grand jury. You understand why they didn't bring murder charges? Because if they did, the cops would have been acquitted. And then what happens in Louisville and New York and DC? You want them to bring trumped up charges for the mob? And you think if they get acquitted, and they would have by a jury, you think the mob would have said, "Oh, okay, that's justice. That's how our system works."
Because Jerry, they don't understand what justice is. They're in their mind, justice means convictions, right? And maximum punishments. Don't move to Massachusetts if you want to see stuff like that. You're never going to see justice. Welcome to our world. But now they're kind of seeing it for the first time. That sometimes justice is, it means that the defendant gets off because there isn't enough evidence to convict them of a crime. Like, that's still justice, believe it or not.
In a vacuum, just forget race and forget the war on cops and forget the mobs that are just getting off on trashing small businesses and burning. Forget all that, and just think if you heard somebody shot a cop, hit him in the leg, injured him severely, and the cop shot back. Do you think there's some injustice involved in that? I mean, on its face, it seems absurd that this idiot, Kenneth Walker, shot the cop, hit him, and the cop shot back, and Breonna Taylor sadly got hit and killed. Tell me this: of all the stuff you watched last night, of all the chants and all the screaming and all the ranting and all the mob activity you saw last night, did you hear anyone say maybe Kenneth Walker is the blame here? Maybe he should at least share some of the blame. I don't believe they're even pursuing
what would you do if all right, so why would he shoot at the cops if they didn't? I mean, I'm generally curious about this. Why would he shoot at the cops if they announced themselves? Why not just?
Well, I assume he didn't hear them, or didn't, or thought it was someone lying. I believe.
Part of me has like the Rand Paul, feelings about this. The libertarian wing of the party. I don't really like libertarians, but I don't know. There should be a little bit something, I think, that we should all worry about, like cops, coming into our homes. Because there were no drugs in there, were there?
There were no drugs, but they had used it as, this Jamarcus Glover used it. They have him on videotape picking.
Right. I just feel like if you're going to do something like
that's where he kept his money and probably his drugs.
Did they get drug money out of it?
They did not, but they have him on
and
tape.
That's kind of you got to shoot better than that. You know what I mean? It's like you expect higher percentage than that. That's you can't just kill people without drugs on the scene.
By the way, they said after the shooting, they stopped searching. They didn't do a thorough search because there was a dead woman and an injured cop and a lot of.
They could search afterwards.
It said I've just read a story. It said they didn't.
So anyway, the drugs could still be in there. Is that what you're saying?
Anyway, it's like weapons of mass destruction. We know Saddam Hussein had them. He used them on his own people. He didn't
and we criticize. But he didn't have nuclear weapons. Oh, you're still, what are you, Bill Kristol? You're sticking to the Iraq lie? Come on, give me a break. So that's actually a good comparison you bring up is Iraq, because we were told that we were going in there for this. It wasn't there. And today, George Bush is disgraced. It doesn't mean George Bush is a criminal, but he is disgraced, and it's kind of disgraceful a little bit. If you're gonna go into a place like that, you better be damn sure they got drugs in there.
Well, then you blame the person who asked for the warrant, applied for the warrant, or who issued the
judge.
Warrant.
A lot of people are going after the judge.
These cops just did their job. I mean, they identified themselves. They bashed their way in. And apparently Kenneth Walker thought it might be Jamarcus Glover, who used to be Breonna Taylor's boyfriend. And he shot first to ask questions later. And unfortunately, she gets hit in the crossfire. But
has the media sought him out at all? Has the media interviewed him? I don't even know what he looked,
I don't think so. Well, I'm not sure about that. It's a good
Can we
question.
get him on the pod? Can we get him on the show?
We
Dave?
can try, Kenneth. It's
Put him on
not
the
the
show.
same. It's not Kenny Skywalker. It's
I'll settle for the guy who's still in jail too. We can get him on too. Either one.
we can't
Oh,
get
get on that.
Fernandez Bowman, unfortunately.
Unfortunately,
The guy, and she just said she didn't know who he was when they found a dead body in her trunk, and he was an associate of Jamarcus Glover, who apparently pissed off somebody. But here's, and we did this before we started recording this. We listened to this ESPN reporter, and we're going to play it because it is a big part of the problem. ESPN is, we know, not really a media outlet. They're a left wing, a bunch of left wingers who love LeBron James, love Colin Kaepernick, hate Trump. They're like MSNBC in that regard. But you would think if this is such a big story in the NBA among NBA players and coaches, and it is. I mean, do you think maybe if you're the owner of the Celtics or Danny Ainge or Wick Grousbeck, you're saying, could these guys maybe focus? They're one series away from the finals. Could they forget, the story? I know it's a lot to ask, but could they just forget the story for a day and focus on basketball? I mean,
oh my! If you ever said something like that, Jerry, you would be done in the NBA for life.
Jason Whitlock said the reason the Bucks got knocked off, they were favorites to go to the finals, was they were busy with all the, the social justice stuff.
Couldn't you make the same argument about every other their opponents? I mean, are the Heat not interested in the social?
I'm not sure. I haven't noticed. I just know this.
Although I got to be honest, the Heat are one of the whitest teams that I've ever seen to make it this far in the NBA. Like the other day, one time there's 4 white guys on the court.
It doesn't matter because you've seen the coaches. You see Mike Malone and Steve Kerr and Popovich and even Brad. I mean, you want to see guys who have submitted to the mob, who have agreed to not step out of line. Look at the coaches. These guys, they might think like I do that maybe there is more to the story. They can never say it. There's
one coach I think that's a Republican. He got caught giving money to Burgess Owens, the black guy running for Congress.
Right. The coach of the Utah Jazz.
Snyder, yeah.
But gave money to a black guy, and the players in the media.
That proves he's racist somehow.
That's racist, right? Gave money to a black guy who's running against a white guy, and was like, "What the hell?"
Because he's a Republican, Joe. I tell you, there's nothing they hate more than a black conservative. I feel so bad for people who are black and conservative. Their life just must be constantly on the defensive.
Yes, well, and some of them are just tough as hell, like Candace Owen, who's so tough and so good and forceful, and she doesn't back out from anyone.
She's the Boston Candace Owens.
She's got the number 2 book on the bestseller list behind Bob Woodward, and hopefully she overtakes him. But
who's the one in Baltimore? She put out
Craig Klasick, and you know what?
She must spend so much on those.
I love her. She's made 2 of the best commercials I've ever seen. She was great on The View. She went right after Joy Behar. She's probably going to lose like 75-25.
Yeah, you'll never hear from her again.
Right, and she'll be on TV or on radio or something because she's good. She's very good and very smart. But and those ads are brilliant. But back to ESPN, because this is part of the problem. You're at some point you're supposed to be an objective media person, right? And you're supposed, and even if you're on an opinion show like Max Kellerman, you're supposed to know the facts of the story. Would you agree?
I think that's a good basis.
If you're Max Kellerman or Dan Lebitard or Stephen A. Smith or one of these guys, you're supposed to know the story. I mean, your job is to understand the story, and you have a moron like Max Kellerman probably making $2 million a year to do an hour-long show arguing about about whatever, who's the better quarterback, Drew Lock or Mitch Trubisky. That's what they do, a segment on that, and they get paid millions.
Stick to that.
And Max Kellerman comes out and says that the violence across the country is being committed by white right-wing agitators. That's what he believes.
And who challenged him? He had 2 other people on the show. Did either of them challenge that?
They did not. Can you imagine someone saying that and not challenge him, even if it were?
It was Stephen A. and a chick. I think it was Maria.
I can't imagine that. Did you see ESPN all day yesterday?
Yes. I was going to get to that. And by the way, the woman who hosts the show with Max Kellerman is Jalen Rose's wife, correct? Wife?
I'm not sure. No, I don't know.
Last night, Jalen Rose, in the middle of the action, says, You know, we need justice for in the middle of a play.
He says, "Arrest the cop." Oh, that's
the
they
cop.
used
Oh,
to
right
go
here.
off
I
the
got
air
that.
at one point. They
Hang on,
cut him off because he goes, "Arrest the cops who killed Breonna Taylor."
Yeah, check this out.
That's crazy.
J Rose, Tyler Hero scored in double figures every game this postseason.
He's been putting in work for a young fella, but it'd also be a great day to arrest the cops that murdered Breonna Taylor.
That part out.
It's
They
incredible. I
support
mean,
it,
ESPN has 1,000 employees, hundreds of people on the air. Not one will step out of line. And I said this last night. Colin Kaepernick came out with the most outrageous statement saying we must abolish the police. They murdered Breonna Taylor. We must abolish the police.
Yeah.
I don't believe you
Reasonable.
get one person today. There'll be like 100 opinion shows around the horns and PTIs who will say Colin Kaepernick is inciting people to hate cops. He might have even inspired the guy who shot 2 cops in Louisville last night. I mean, he hates cops. They act like he's freaking Rosa Parks. This man hates cops. He celebrates people who shoot cops. Here's his, and I love this. He spoke
If
out.
Rosa Parks had, if Rosa Parks had his money, she wouldn't be taking the bus, Jerry. Enough to stop that.
Right. He takes money from Nike, who pays slave labor to make crap shirts in his honor. But he says we must abolish the police. The guy who says police are just like slave hunters back in the day, who wore the pig socks, who celebrates Assata Shakur, also known as Joanne Chesimard, who assassinated a cop. He is scum. He is absolute scum. And LeBron idolizes him, wears his jersey, and everybody from Max Kellerman to you name it, everyone, Stephen A., everyone on ESPN idolizes, adores the man. But let's get back to ESPN's coverage of the biggest story. It is the biggest story in the country, and they agree 100% that this was an outrage, that Breonna Taylor was murdered by racist cops. They all believe that, correct?
That seems to be the consensus.
So you have a reporter who's in the bubble in Orlando covering the NBA. She's 25 years old, doesn't have a lot of experience, but I think her job would be to understand the story completely, to spend hours reading everything, understanding the story, and then talking to players objectively about it.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, Jalen, do you have a few minutes? What do you think the cops should have done when Kenneth Walker shot them? Good question, right?
It would be a great question. And I think
I want this question for you, Aiden, or for Jalen. You can be Jalen now. Jalen.
Okay.
If this went to trial, if they indicted these cops on murder, what do you think a jury of their peers, 12 people, would have done?
We want justice for Breonna Taylor.
Okay, what if these cops are acquitted of murder charges? Then what would have happened in this country? Would you be okay with that? That's our system, Jalen. That's the system.
The system is racist.
Oh, right. It's systemically racist, right?
Justice for Breonna Taylor.
Okay, so in other words, she could talk to NBA players who would not have a clue what they're talking about, right?
Of course not. Neither was she. Neither was she.
Okay, let me ask you this. Would that have been good TV? Would that have been a good report? Here we are live.
Great TV. It would have been
with Kemba Walker, Jalen Brown, who clearly don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Why is it Sage Steele? Why doesn't she ask them that? Because she could get away with it because she's black and female, and she can ask them.
She's smoking hot, but nothing that matters. So anyway,
she's like a grown-up version of Malika Andrews.
Okay, Malika Andrews. Is it Andrews? Malika Andrews.
I don't know. I'm just so
we have that name right.
Malika Andrews. Yep.
Malika Andrews is a reporter for ESPN. She's covering the NBA in the bubble. And by the way, she's in the bubble and doing a report with a mask on. She's got everybody there gets tested every day. Everybody's negative. Nobody's tested positive. She's doing a report with a camera and a cameraman and nobody else near her. And she's like this. Could somebody there in the control room say, Malika, take the freaking mask off for 2 minutes so you can do your report and then put it back on? What is she wearing a mask for? She's alone in the bubble. Anyway, she's not really a reporter. She's an activist. She relates to Breonna Taylor. And she went on TV. Was this last night, like late last night, early this morning?
This was last night. Yep.
And openly wept about this is a reporter.
It was quite the performance.
Okay, can we? You want to listen to Malika? You think I've built this up enough so far? Yeah. So let's listen to Malika Andrews from ESPN reporting live from Orlando last night.
Yesterday, when they declared a state of emergency in and around Louisville, and he said that he was already gearing up for a decision that he disagreed with. So when he was asked about it again after the game, he said, "I can't be surprised," but in a way that makes it so clear why he is continuously referred to as a man who is great on the basketball court, but will be even greater potentially off of the basketball court. He said, "What do you expect about a system that is rigged against, that was founded on an unfairness against people?"
Can you hold on one sec?
Yes.
People that
Yep.
look like
Hey, we're talking about a 25-year-old woman with, I guess some talent, who is a full-time reporter for ESPN on TV, being watched by, 7-8 million people who watch the game, talking about how the system is rigged against people like her.
Yes,
Just to put it in context.
25 and she's already got this job, but
And
it's
she's
rigged
probably
against her.
making, $500,000 to start. And she wants you to know that the system is rigged against her.
Amazing.
Okay, let's proceed.
No, because this is about the players and their response, but it's been hard for them. This is something that, as you mentioned, they fought for the entire time they've been down here, and they were hoping for a different outcome. And we've talked before, Scott, about how my job here is to objectively cover the truth, and to share what these players are going through. And today what they're going through is that they're hurting. And I have prided myself in being able to be objective and cover these sorts of issues. But when it is so clear that the system of objectivity in journalism is so whitewashed and doesn't account for the fact that when I am walking up the hill, my wonderful producer Melinda reminds me that Breonna Taylor was 26 and I am 25, and that could have been me.
But then she just stops.
Hold on. How much more? I want to get
No,
back.
she stops on a dime and is like, so back to reporting.
We'll get back to it. But because she's sort of the same age as the woman who was shot dead by police,
Yeah.
she can't report it objectively because they're the same age. Well, let me think. The cop in LA who got shot in the face was 24. You know what, Malik? That's almost your age.
It's almost your age. There was another, I'm 38, Jerry. There was a 39-year-old white guy the other day that got killed. That could have been me.
That could have been you.
Me. Yeah, I mean, he sold drugs.
And
But besides that, could have been me.
Here's the kicker: is there will be people all day on ESPN saying that was all. Rex Chapman's probably already tweeted out, "This is everything," with little arrows, fingers pointing down, at just embarrassment, crying like a child on TV over
search your name right now.
Never knew who was handling the money for a drug dealer and got shot when her boyfriend shot a cop. It's tragic. It's a mistake. It's awful. But this woman is supposed to be, and by the way, it's a big story. You'd think she'd be excited to get the story and talk to the players and maybe ask them these questions that we keep bringing up, saying these are good questions. Instead, she's weeping like a child, saying that could have been her. Why do you handle money for a lot of drug dealers?
Do you live with the man who shoots at police when they knock on the door?
If she does, you're right.
Yeah, definitely. That's going to increase your chances of getting shot. Absolutely.
Could
you search
her?
Do a search. You're absolutely right, Jared. If you search, I just searched for her name on Twitter, and let me just read a couple of these. Beyond impressed with Malika Andrews. My God, she should not have to open up a vein like this on TV. That's Rachel Nichols.
You're kidding.
Rachel Nichols said that.
Oh my God.
We have NBA Central says, powerful stuff from Malika Andrews. And they're all just quoting him. Mike Golick Jr., great respect and appreciation for the vulnerability from Malika Andrews. How can you watch that and not laugh. Like, it's like, this is so fake. She just stops in the middle of it and goes back.
I don't care if it's fake or real. Her job is to cover the story, which is a huge story. I mean, I said all these NBA guys are outraged. Some of them are really smart. Jaylen Brown's really smart. He's just not well read on this subject. And if he were, I wonder if he'd have a different perspective. And I wonder what he would think if this multiracial grand jury indicted the cops. Does he think they're going to get convicted? Because they weren't. Daniel Cameron, the DA, knew, the attorney general knew it was going to be impossible to get a conviction because the cop got shot first. Why is that so hard to grasp?
If I can quote my good friend Omar Little from The Wire, Jerry, it's all in the game, yo. It's all in the game. If you are involved, like she was in the game, if you are involved in the movement of cash that is involved in buying and selling of drugs, you're in the game. And when you're in the game, there are certain risks that come along with that. Jail is one of them. Getting shot is another one by other, drug dealers or by police. That's a distinct possibility when you're in the game. A great way to not get shot by police is to not get in the game in the first place if you're trying to be an EMT.
I knew there'd be people like you mentioned, Rachel Nichols, who's was sort of a professional, sort of a smart reporter, thinks this is wonderful.
Well, they're mad at her, Jerry, because
this child is weeping when she's supposed to be covering the story because she happens to be about the same age as one of the principals in the story.
And black.
And black, but again, so everybody's black. All the players she should be talking to, they're all black. I mean, that doesn't mean you're all supposed to just hold hands and cry. There's a story to cover. And I think, this is same thing with, when Kirk Herbstreit wept like a child about whatever, just the general, systemic racism out there made him cry. And everybody, and I know why he did it, because as soon as he did it, everybody on Twitter, everybody at ESPN just said it was wonderful. This woman, I don't think she's intentionally looking for Twitter applause, but she knew she was going to get.
No, that is exactly. You don't think she's intentionally looking for Twitter applause, Jerry? Why else would? Because it's a fake cry. We can all agree on that. Why else would you fake a cry but for?
No, because you want. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it doesn't have to be Twitter. It could be today on whatever on PTI.
It's mostly Twitter. Twitter is these people live on Twitter. It is their entire world. They live in a bubble and maybe that's it. Twitter is a left-wing bubble, and you do stuff like this to get praised on Twitter. Like without Twitter, no one would know who Breonna Taylor is. People might look at this objectively, but Twitter creates this echo chamber where people just try to outwoke each other and try to have like that memorable Disney moment like she had right there. And she knew, we all knew what was going to happen. That's so powerful, so strong. Like nobody besides us, Jerry, and maybe 5 or 6 other people out there in the media have the balls to just call something for what it is. Everybody else has to go along with the script. And the script in this case is that Malika Andrews is brave and strong because she exposed her vulnerability. That's how you get people like Brian Stelter telling us that it's okay for men to cry on TV. It's not. If you're at work, don't cry. It's a sign of weakness. I'm sorry.
When you're supposed to be doing a job, I mean, this woman is supposed to be doing a job, and an important job. Like I said, I'm watching SportsCenter last night and this morning for the first time in a while. I flipped over, and I'm going to get to this other thing that put me over the top last night. I'm going to tweet out your tweet, retweet your tweet about her and crying over a woman who was, as we point out, laundering money for a drug dealer who once had a dead body in her trunk. I mean, she's pure as the driven snow, but they did find a body in her trunk. Anyway, this woman can't do her report, can't get through it because she's sort of the same age as Breonna Taylor. It's just bizarre. And nobody, you're right, except us and 1 or 2 other people will say how foolish this is, how she should be able to do the story. It's been quite a while since Breonna Taylor was shot, correct? It's been 3 years plus.
It's been a bit. No, since Breonna Taylor got shot?
Yeah, I'm sorry, 3 years, 6 months.
Months, yeah. She was shot in February.
March 12th. March 12th. So it's been 6 months, whatever that is, 6 months.
6 months.
And Breonna and this reporter can't make it through a report for someone who was shot 6 months ago, someone she didn't know.
It's Jerry. It's her generation. Like I taught people her age, like these kids these days. I sound so old saying this, but they're so coddled. They are told that like everything is about their feelings and their emotions. They're not allowed to get hurt anymore. They're not allowed. Like, I'm sorry, getting your feelings hurt and like just it's part of life. And these people, these kids have grown up in this bubble, this anti-bullying curriculum. I'm sorry, bullying is like if you get bullied as a kid. It makes you stronger, believe it or not. But we are so trying to protect kids from ever having their feelings hurt. And this is the results you get where crying is currency. Weakness is currency. Vulnerability is currency. It's cool to, be sad and have your feelings hurt and stuff like that. It's no longer a sign of weakness.
And means you care. She really, really cares. But here's what I'm doing last night is I'm watching the riots and then two cops are shot. They have a suspect. Unlike in LA, where that little round Oompa Loompa shot the two cops and they still haven't arrested him. They arrested someone immediately who was targeting police because of the rhetoric of Colin Kaepernick and LeBron James and others. They put the target on the back of the cops. So when something like this happens, you get the outlier, you get the one or two crazies out there say, I'm going to take it to another level. I'm going to shoot a cop. We saw the video and audio of one of the Black Lives Matters protesters look at a cop. It was still daylight. It said, "You all gonna die tonight. You all gonna die tonight."
That's
and
nice.
They tried. They shot two of them, and they survived. We think they're going to survive, which is a wonderful thing. But nobody says, "Gee, maybe Colin Kaepernick should tone down the rhetoric. Maybe LeBron James should come out and defend cops at some point." LeBron James, by the way, still hasn't taken the sheriff in LA up on the offer to kick in on the reward. Still hasn't done that.
Did they ever find those guys? They never found those guys?
No, it's one guy and they haven't caught him yet. One fat load and they haven't caught him yet.
And they got his name?
No, they don't. Well,
How
maybe they
possible?
do, but I thought they would have someone in an hour.
Yeah.
He was so distinctive and he was so careless. I mean, he shot the cops on video and they have a $300,000 reward and they still haven't got him. They will, hopefully. But they got the guy we believe in Louisville right away when he shot the two cops. So I'm watching this. And I see on Twitter the Celtics games coming down the wire. So I flip on over to ESPN, and I can't believe this is still the case. It says Black Lives Matter on the court. It says Black Lives Matter on the uniforms. It says Black Lives Matter on their T-shirts. Black Lives Matter is leading this protest / riot. We think they've organized this protest / riot in Louisville. And then there was one in DC and then there was one in New York. Two cops are shot. Businesses are trashed, burned. People are throwing things at cops, setting fires. So the organization that is doing that is organizing that is still being honored by the NBA. And I guess
there's a difference between the peaceful protesters and the rioters. When are you going to get that through your head?
Right. I would say there is. Black Lives Matter represents both. Black Lives Matter.
Jerry, the Boston Globe said that 93% of protests were peaceful.
That's the other thing that moron Max Kellerman said in that rant. He said 93% are peaceful. And so even if that were true, which it isn't, but
first, no, you know why that's true, Jerry? Because they're factoring the protest in Stoneham and the protest in Webster and the protest in, you know what I mean, in your town with 3,000 people. Those count in the data.
Right. And then
do the big cities now.
You could factor in the protests like yours defending cops, which are always peaceful.
Yes.
Which, those are peaceful people. But say you have 5,000 people. And if you saw the march in Louisville, there was at least 5,000 people. If you do that, that's 350 violent rioters. That's a lot, wouldn't you say?
Good amount.
If you're the cops, you're outnumbered at that point. So maybe it is true. Only 7% are violent. That's a lot of violence.
It is.
But it just amazes me that at this point, and I know BLM's numbers, their approval rating has gone down. But it amazes me when I see that and I say, these guys are honoring the organization, which at the very same time they're playing this game on this court with these shirts, is leading the violence in Louisville. It's the same organization, despite the fact that, Reamer's going to tell me they're two different things. They're not. And when they had that U-Haul truck, did you see the U-Haul truck pull up in the afternoon?
That was amazing. That was amazing.
They open it up, people start, and before the verdict, this thing had to be ready before the verdict, right? Or before the announcement. So it was ready. A U-Haul truck. They open it up and they take signs and baseball bats out of the truck to get in and things to throw in this riot out of the truck. And all these people on Twitter are saying, who's paying for this? And I'm like, what do you mean who's paying for it? Black Lives Matter has $1.6 billion in the bank, probably more, but we believe they've taken in over $1.5 billion in donations from idiots like you name it, like Jack Dorsey and Steve Carell and Justin Timberlake and Kamala Harris,
who, by the way, her and Joe were very quick last night to acknowledge the police officer shot. They got some numbers came back, and they're like, dude, you got to start defending cops a little bit more, more.
And I assume the guy who shot the cops is going to need some bail money, and he can count on Kamala and Joe Biden. We know Joe Biden has 13 staff members who donated to the group in Minnesota that was bailing out the arsonists and the rioters who burned down AutoZone and burned down the police station. They got out because of Biden and Kamala. That's their people. But at what point do we reach a point where somebody says, maybe we don't want to be associated with Black Lives Matter? And the moment that they're burning businesses in Louisville, maybe we shouldn't be honoring them. Look at this. They pull this stuff out of the U-Haul and they show a guy get a bat. I don't know if you could see it in another picture. Get a bat. And I'm saying,
abolish the police.
Abolish the police. That is the stance of the group that is being honored every night by the NBA.
Abolish the police.
Abolish the police. That was Colin Kaepernick's tweet last night. Abolish the police. It is bizarre. That is
he's got to get the verbiage, Jerry. It's reimagine. Reimagine.
No, I'll give Kaepernick credit for this. He doesn't care about that.
That's true. That's true.
At
least he's
trying to be politically.
He says
correct.
what they're thinking.
Exactly, and he speaks for them. I mean, he doesn't speak. He occasionally tweets, or his girlfriend tweets for him. But I find it amazing how cavalier and casually and comfortably people will repeat the lies. And I mentioned the Michael Brown thing. People still do the hands up, don't shoot, even though Obama's Department of Justice thoroughly investigated and found out the cop was justified and Michael Brown was trying to kill him. In this case, you hear reports or you hear people on, and I've flipped around on CNN, they'll be like experts and they'll say, she was in her bed sleeping. It was a no knock warrant. I mean, they repeat lies that she had no involvement with the drug dealer. And you're going, do we really? I mean, we kind of have access to a lot of information this day and age. We can't get the facts straight. We could still say, that cop shouldn't have shot, I guess, or maybe.
Where's Twitter on this? Every time Trump says something, where's that guy Daniel Dale from CNN? Fact check. Actually, Breonna Taylor, how come he only fact checks right wingers? They never fact check left wingers. Why is that?
It's just so dishonest. I mean, it really is just so dishonest when you listen to, whoever it is, Jaylen Brown, and then they talk about it, you say, man, I would love to have this discussion. I think Malika Andrews could have this discussion, but I just ask that maybe understand a little bit why. I mean, you think it's an injustice, right? An injustice that only one of the cops was indicted and not for anything he did. Tell me what they should have done. Isn't that a good question? If I were sitting down with LeBron in the bubble, what should the grand jury have done? Indicted him on murder charges? The cop who killed her had a bullet in his leg from Kenneth Walker. He got shot. He shot back and he killed her. You think the jury of his peers is going to convict him?
Of course. I mean, that's the most insane part about it. They got shot. So you can't even say you're it sounds like the Wild West in there. I don't think this apartment could possibly be that big. But what were they supposed to do? Like, you tell me I apologize. I didn't realize this was Breonna Taylor's house. There's a hashtag for you 6 months in the future that I didn't know about, so I can't shoot you.
And you were just a hardworking EMT, which, just after long hours.
With a side gig.
Right. Who handled the money for this drug dealer and visited him in prison. And he called her from prison many, many times. And he had his mail delivered. His address that he gave this hardcore drug dealer, this violent criminal, Jamarcus, what's his face? Glover. His home address was her address where she lived. He had packages and mail delivered there. That's why there was a warrant. and maybe they shouldn't have, kicked in the door at 12:40 in the morning.
Yeah, we can debate that and you can legislate that, but the fact of the matter is, at the time, this was allowed, this was legal. So your issue is not with these police officers. Your issue is with the law, which isn't racist. It sounds like these people they're just closet libertarians. Just come out. You know what I mean?
That's the other lie. Tell me this. Why is it racist?
It's not because a black person died. It's racist. Every time a black person dies, it's racist. That's insane.
Jamarcus Glover, he's black. The woman handling the money for him and taking the packages and mail for him on videotape, we got him picking up his mail and packages at that apartment, is black. What were they supposed to do? Say he's black. Let's not get a warrant. Let's not investigate. I mean, I don't understand what makes it black. And I would bet, we don't know for sure, but I'm going to bet that the grand jury was multiracial, that there were some African Americans or, Hispanics or women or whatever. It wasn't all white. It wasn't, 12 angry men on this jury, on this grand jury. We won't know. By the way, they have the person in custody. Breaking news, I believe. Lary, L-A-R-Y, Larry Enzo Johnson. Is this the same Larry Johnson from Boston that we know? Larry Enzo Johnson is in police custody after shooting 2 police officers. He's charged with wanton endangerment, another popular charge in that city, and assault of a police officer. We got his mug shot. I just retweeted it. You could see the guy. Fortunately, they got him quick. It wasn't like L.A. We got him, and I believe it was open and shut. I believe they caught him right after he fired away and shot 2 cops. Larry Enzo, what a strange name that is. But we will see going forward if anyone's going to have an honest conversation about this on, in the media, on ESPN. I doubt it. It's an outrage. LeBron says it is. It's racist. Colin Kaepernick says it is. The only answer, according to Kaepernick, is abolish the police.
That'll fix it.
Yeah, Jamarcus Glover probably won't deal drugs or kill fellow,
It worked out great in Chaz, Jerry. It worked out great. All you need is a local warlord with some a fair one. I think the problem with Chaz was the warlord wasn't fair. So if you can find like a wise warlord, it could work. It could work.
And you had Attorney General Maura Healey's tweet in front of you, didn't you?
I had it, and basically,
what did the head law enforcement official in the state of Massachusetts have to say about the system, which is a grand jury looks at the evidence and decides to indict or not, or decides what charges would apply? What did the Attorney General have to say about this case?
That this was an example of systemic racism. Of course,
systemic racism. So do you think Maura Healey thinks that the grand jury is all white? Is that what she thinks?
No. If you want to see systemic racism, they should have come to my protest on Tuesday, Jerry. Like, we were there to protest actual systemic racism in which a racist named Monica Cannon Grant is somehow elevated by the system, by every single politician, by the media. That is what systemic racism looks like. Monica Cannon Grant.
I want to get to yours. I'm definitely going to get to your story because it's a good one. But unfortunately, I think the Breonna Taylor thing is just getting started, as we saw in Portland and Seattle. There's a great video in where's the video? What city's the cop? Is it in Louisville or Seattle? I'm sorry, Seattle. The rioters. New tactic when the cops are coming toward them: lay down in the street, just lay down. And so
this, how that goes.
This scumbag, rioter lays down in the street, and the cops are on their mountain bikes, and the cop just rides right over him like he's a speed bump. Oh. It's beautiful. You can see that on Twitter. I've retweeted it. That's Andy No's Twitter feed, I believe. But if you were Wick Grossbeck, and you're right, no one will say this, NBA owner, or you own the Bucks, or you own any team, and all your players are doing is talking about this and wearing the shirts. And Kemba Walker said, this is such an injustice. I can't wrap my head around this. LeBron James said much the same. Like, I don't have the words for this. And you're thinking, could you maybe wrap your head around the game tonight, Kemba? I mean, there's lots of big stories in the news, and we've talked about lots of them. I mean, Hunter Biden's a pretty damn good story. We're going to get to that. Turtleboy's protest about that's a big story. I mean, there's
Big
a
story.
presidential election coming up in 40 days. There's a debate coming up. There's a Supreme Court justice who's going to be named in a couple days. Lots of big stories. If you're the owner or the coach of a team, are you not tempted to say, guys, you want to be social justice warriors, do it on your own time, or do it when this is over? We're in the playoffs. We have a chance to go to the finals. It is amazing how it's just they've become tied together. The NBA season or the NBA playoffs in the bubble is like, they've become a little movement of their own. And you're thinking, if I were a fan, or certainly if I were the owner, GM, I'm thinking, I'm glad that I want to vote. That's important. Vote, but you don't vote for 40 days. So let's play now, vote later.
Yeah. Vote for who, by the way?
We don't even have to say that.
It's just so transparent. Like you got Bloomberg bailing all these people out, paying all their fines in Florida so they can vote.
No. Get it straight. Not all of them. Just the Hispanic and the black felons.
Oh, okay. So I mean, it's just
out any white.
This is how little they think. I mean, they're not even hiding what they think of black people. They're like, we generally think that you're all poor, criminals, and helpless, but you'll vote for us if we pay off your fines. That's what we think of you. But we're not racist.
And we know you'll vote for Joe Biden because you're a felon and a criminal. But I mean, there's not
that's literally the expectation. That's insane.
There's never a thought to the victims. Like maybe, and by the way, when you bail out or you subsidize or you bankroll 32,000 felons, you think there's some child molesters in there? You think there's some guys who beat their wives or killed their wives? If we had a media, if there were an objective media, we'd have the stories of these felons that are literally being subsidized by Michael Bloomberg and the Democrats. It'd be a huge scandal, and we'll get to, the utter corruption, the utter immorality of the mainstream media, because it just gets worse every day. It literally gets worse every day. But I know you're anxious. since we're on the topic.
Yeah, because I got remote learning in like 7 minutes. So you know how it is.
We're on the topic of civil disobedience. Turtleboy and his crowd, the Turtle Riders, went to Roxbury, went to police headquarters to speak out for conservative Black Lives Matter. Conservative Black
yes,
people,
CBLM.
Like Rayla Campbell, who was up there with you. I watched the video. I was a little confused, to be honest with you, because I couldn't tell the difference in your guys and the other side.
We were the ones with no masks. That's how you could tell.
Yes, and you it's
literally how you could tell.
You had people like just getting in your way and looking for a confrontation. And I'll give you credit, man. Things got a little tense, and it didn't get physical, correct?
Yeah. Well, it got a little physical. So we showed up at 1. They had set up the mics for her, and then me and Rayla did a press conference there, which they didn't air, by the way. And then we heard from the grapevine like an hour and a half later, Monica Cannon Grant's coming to the side. And so we show up there. There's just a wall of Antifa there, right? All these poor people that have never been hugged their whole lives. They're standing there in their combat boots playing dress up. And we're trying to we see Monica roll up with her entourage there. It looked like a parade of elephants at, Barnum and Bailey. And I tried to get by this group of wall of Antifa, and I got by the first group. But then Refrigerator Dairy was standing there, and I couldn't get around. Like she put her, they're doing the black charge thing. They're moving, and I'm trying to get around it. They try to grab you, and I let them know. I didn't hit anybody, but I let them know in not so subtle terms that that's not going to be tolerated.
Were you a little nervous at times because you were outnumbered, and we've seen
we're right next to the police. There's literally police standing there. Like you could see up in the windows at the police station because they're all glass or whatever. All these suits, detectives and stuff, just standing there watching this. Like you've
seen these Antifa scum around the country. They don't care. They'll punch an old lady. They'll steal a drink off the table of an old lady, old man. They don't care. They get arrested, and Kamala Harris bails them out, and they go back and do it again. I've looked at all the mugshots, all the video around the country. Is there a single member of Antifa who's not totally hideously ugly.
Oh no, they're all vile and disgusting. That's why they're in
fat, some are
Antifa.
thin, and some are male and female, and some are transgender, and some are old, young, but they're all sickly looking. They're all
because they none of them went to the prom. They're girls. They didn't want to wear dresses. They didn't want to put makeup on. They're just ugly people on the inside and outside. They hate themselves. They hate their lives, and that's why they associate with a hateful person like Monica Cannon Grant.
Yeah, and it was effective. You got
It was effective largely because of Rayla Campbell and Leah Janduso, who was like my muscle. Like, you should hire her if you ever need a bodyguard, because
she's our biggest fan. Every time you're on, she's
our buddy Brian Riccio was there, following us. He's so boring. He just followed us around the whole time. And then all of a sudden, Leah just comes out of nowhere with her dog, and he just ran away. He ran for the hills.
Really? She afraid of dogs?
You got right.
He's afraid of girls. He ran away from her. It was pathetic. It's pathetic.
But it was good. Unfortunately, Rayla's not gonna win, but she's putting up a good fight. And we know now all about Monica Cannon Grant. You exposed her. Everybody knows all about her. And next time, an elected official, next time the mayor is kissing her ass, I think he'll be called out, at least by some people out there, certainly not by the mainstream media.
We'll show up if they don't. That's our new thing. We show up. It's fun. It's like we're using leftist tactics against them.
Yeah, you look like you were having fun. Where's your next? You're threatening to go somewhere up at North Ando.
Yeah, I threatened to go to Luke Noble's house if the Mass GOP held a fundraiser there for him, because he's been credibly accused of some pretty awful things by his own children, and we have video of it. And luckily, after within an hour or two of reading that, the Mass GOP canceled the fundraiser.
Oh, so, good.
No need to protest.
Because I don't think they should be associated with
it. Did you get any coverage from local media? Because I did see local media gave Monica Cannon Grant the respect she deserved in that moment. Did you get any coverage in those articles?
Tuesday?
Yeah.
I did not see any coverage of that anywhere.
Yeah,
there were a lot of cameras there. They just didn't run the stories.
Yep.
I guess not. What a waste of time for them.
All right, we'll let you go stick your kid in front of a screen.
I know.
That's what
awful.
That's what it takes these days. Your 5-year-old has to sit in front of a screen for how many hours?
3. She gets periodic breaks here and then for snacks and stuff like that. But it's
do they want her to wear a mask?
No, she gets away with not wearing a mask. Luckily.
That sounds like so much fun.
It's terrible. It's terrible, Jerry.
I don't envy you, but all right, that's Turtleboy, TB Daily News. You can read all about his protest, his peaceful protest. He was protesting for conservative Black Lives Matter with Rayla Campbell, a candidate for Congress, challenging the radical Ayanna Pressley. So good luck to Rayla. It's a long shot, but what the hell? Couple other things I want to get to. Cullinane. Do you think Bill Belichick's sweatshirt got enough attention on Twitter? Do you think it got enough? Do you think it got enough love from people on Twitter? I mean, he takes pride in looking like a bum, looking like a slob. But when he showed up yesterday at the press conference, his hair was messy. He had an old, dirty sweatshirt with holes in it, and immediately there were 10 million tweets about how great it was, how wonderful it was. One of them made me laugh out loud. I retweeted it when they had a picture of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the mastermind of 9/11. You know that Belushi looking picture where he's got the ripped T-shirt? Yep. And someone wrote, who wore it better, Belichick or Khalid Sheikh Mohammed? That made me laugh out loud.
Why does the internet love this stuff? You know what I mean? Like players do interviews all the time with their T-shirts off and sweating bullets and stuff like that. Like they expect him to care. I don't understand why the internet's
it is. I always wonder when I see that, does he do it intentionally? Does he say, I want to look as casual, as sloppy as possible, just because he's a defiant guy. We would agree, right? He's a defiant guy. He likes to stick the middle finger up at the NFL any chance he gets. We see that when he goes to the Super Bowl and does those press appearances that he just, in his way, he's like mocking the whole process. He obviously knows what he looks like. He knows, I mean, he's probably not on Twitter, but he knows he's looking pretty shabby, right?
Yes, but he's just an interesting mind. Like I can't wait till his post football life, whether he writes a book or whatever. I don't know. Because he's so happy doing like NFL film shit, and then it's like he's just such a miserable lump in every other.
He will write a book. Hopefully he'll be candid and he'll talk about the media and how he hates the media. And when we'll understand like the genesis of his contempt for the media, because he is remarkably consistent. He doesn't, some people get mad at the media one day and the next day they're like Joe Biden. One day they're snippy and snapping at the media. The next day they're letting the media, they're buddies. He's consistently contemptuous of the press. And
I don't even understand, even this week with radio, and you had it with Brady, even though Brady could show signs of being a charismatic human being, or at least like his energy was always moderately consistent with you guys in the morning. Like Lou Merlone asks him about Brady, and it changes his entire tone of the interview for the rest. You know what I mean? Like he wouldn't even do a sponsored, hey, what's the play of the day? What was the play of the game? Just because Lou Merlone asked him about Tom Brady. It's like,
he won't say, he'll never he rarely would, talk about how great Brady was. It was strange, but, it's working. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. So far, Cam Newton's been spectacular, and it looks like they upgraded a quarterback. Kills me to say that, but Cam's better than Brady right now. And,
right now, we'll see.
If they go the whole season and they win more and Newton's better than Brady, it's going to appear to be the smartest move the smartest coach has ever made, letting Brady walk. We know he's done that a million times with guys, and traded away whatever, Cutler Malloy, traded away Mike Vrabel and Logan Mankins, and he's done it a lot. Traded a guy a year early rather than a year late, or let them go. This will be the hallmark. This will be the move that will
but in fairness,
his obituary, the guy who let Brady walk and signed Cam Newton for punter money.
Yes, but if he's got nothing to lose this season, so it is great just to see, like, if he ends up, if he even ends up 8-8, for God's sakes, even though it looks like they're going to be better, he's just in a win.
They're going to be better. They get the Dolphins twice, they get the Jets twice. They're going to be better. They get the Raiders this week, coming off a big Monday night win. They're gonna be better. They're gonna win the division, which is amazing. And Brady probably is not going to win the division. At least so far, it doesn't look that way. And who knows? And Brady's going to get hurt. I'm sorry, I hate to predict it that way, but anyway, I've never seen a coach's attire get more attention than Belichick's did last night. I got to do this before we go, because we talk about the mainstream media, the media bias, media corruption. And I mentioned that the coverage of Andrew Cuomo in New York, Killer Cuomo, is the worst I've ever seen. It's the worst bias I've ever seen. We got a new winner. Winner. The coverage of Hunter Biden is so dishonest. And all you got to do is place Eric Trump's name in place of Hunter Biden. And I can ask you, what would it be like right now if this were Hunter or Eric or Don Jr.? This is just the lead. I'll throw Eric. This is the New York Post story. One of the Post stories. They had a few on this yesterday. Eric Trump sent thousands of dollars to people who appear to be involved in a sex industry, according to a Senate report. The report claims unspecified records show that Eric Trump, has sent funds to non-resident alien women in the U.S. who are citizens of Russia and Ukraine, and who have subsequently wired funds they have received from Eric Trump to individuals located in Russia and Ukraine. The records note that some of these transactions are linked to what appears to be Eastern European prostitution and human trafficking.
You mean Hunter Biden? You keep saying Eric Trump.
I'm doing that for.
I see. Oh, I got you. Sorry. Yeah. Go on. Sorry.
There would be no coverage of the Breonna Taylor thing. There'd be no coverage of the Supreme Court. There'd be no coverage of anything. And I'm not lying. This above the fold in the New York Times, Boston Globe, Washington Post. There would be nonstop coverage on MSNBC and CNN. I mean, nonstop, like nothing we've ever seen before. If that were Eric Trump or Don Jr., he took $3.5 million from the wife of the mayor of Moscow, who is a close friend of Putin, for nothing. He got $1.5 billion out of China. So we got China, we got Russian, we got Putin, we got hookers, we got cocaine. This scumbag just to refresh you, this scumbag joined the Navy when he was 40, got a special dispensation because he was so old, promptly got kicked out for flunking a drug test. He's been in rehab 7 or 8 times. He has, I believe, 3 kids with his ex-wife. He left his wife, I'm just going to give you the quick recap off the top of my head. He left his wife, his first wife, and his 3 children for his brother's widow. Bo Biden, by all accounts, a nice guy, respectable, accomplished guy, died of cancer. His brother starts banging his widow, leaves his wife and children. And then he leaves, and then while he's with his brother's widow, I assume, he knocks up a stripper. A stripper, by the way, and who claims that they used to take sex toys in like the bubble room, in the champagne room, and like do kinky things with this freak in the bubble room. The stripper, he denies he's,
and he always needed it to be new, right? They had to go to
get new whatever sex toys. So the stripper has to sue for child support. He has to pay for this child. This, by the way, Joe Biden doesn't even include this child among his grandchildren. That's how pathetic this family is. His new wife, he married, I believe, like 2 days after he met her. He's made tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions in dirty deals using since his father was in the administration, uses connections to get money for nothing. He's got no experience. He's obviously got no discipline. He's a coke-addled loser who has made tens of millions of dollars because of his father. All of it is dirty money. He is corrupt. He's immoral. He's unethical. And his father lies to the world, looks you right in the eye and says he never talks to Hunter about his business. They flew to China together on Air Force Two. They flew to China. I'm not sure how long that takes, but it takes a little while to fly to China. So they're together on the plane, flying to China for, I don't know how long that is, 12, 14, 16, 18 hours. And according to Joe Biden, they never talk about the reason Hunter's going to China. Can you imagine if the Trumps lied that brazenly, that blatantly? Can you imagine if Eric or Don Jr. made $1.5 billion for some dirty deal in China and made $3.5 million for some unknown reason from the mayor of Moscow's wife, a friend of Putin, a close friend of Putin? That would be, you know how many stories MSNBC and CNN did on this yesterday? How many segments? Guess.
0. Yeah.
0.
Well, that's what I was going to ask
0.
you. What do you think is if you sat down with, what's that dummy's name? Jeff Zucker, or if you sat down with the editor of the New York Times, what would their answer to that be if you asked?
They already did. They say there's nothing new. Nothing new in this 87-page report from the Senate committee from Ron Johnson. Nothing new, which is a flat-out lie. And by the way, Don Jr. had a meeting with a Russian operative. She was actually a Fusion GPS operative. It was a setup. Had a meeting at Trump Tower. It lasted 20 minutes. He thought, he claimed he thought it was about adoption. He was probably looking for dirt on Hillary, which is what you do when you're in a campaign. Because of that 20-minute meeting, he had 30 hours of testimony in front of Congress and the Senate. 30 hours. Hunter Biden is making billions, and he doesn't even get called before the Senate, before the House. They don't even know where he is. And you watch. If Trump will bring it up in the debates, but the moderators will not. They will say, oh, that's old news. We know all that. It is the most dishonest coverage I've ever seen from the media. It is a story involving hookers, cocaine, Russia, China. I mean, it's and not only that, the vice president is on tape, on videotape, threatening the prosecutor who was looking into his son's company, the company Burisma. He's on tape saying, you will not get the money until you fire the prosecutor. And it's just totally ignored. I've never seen anything like it. I'm not surprised. They're 100% invested in the Biden campaign, the media. That's why CNN and MSNBC are on the air. Their goal each and every day is to help Biden and hurt Trump. But this is just the most brazen example. I thought maybe someone on those networks or someone at the New York Times or Washington Post would pretend to be a journalist for a day, because it is such a juicy story. But we now know they have no interest in journalism, no interest in.
They're busy. They're busy reporting. Eric Trump tweeted something about Joe Biden. Using a teleprompter that they don't like. I don't know. Just like reporting on dumb.
He celebrated the 200,000 milestone. They were so excited. 200,000 people died with COVID, and they can hang that on Trump. And they just giddy. They get giddy when the death toll reaches a new milestone. They're rooting for the virus, just like they're rooting right now for mob violence. They're rooting for violence in the virus because they think it somehow hurts Trump. I don't think the violence hurts Trump right now. I mean, it literally, he turns it into campaign ads. His side turns it into a campaign ad when they burn businesses, small businesses owned by, minority owned businesses are getting burned and trashed and looted last night in Louisville. Trump needs to make every ad of their campaign about the civil unrest because, and they abolish the police movement because that is a winning issue. Hopefully it'll be a big part of the debate, but I can't believe the debate's in 5 days. I'm so excited.
That will be, that's must-watch TV. I think that's the only thing that people really give a shit about. And I think that's the only kind of difference maker that's going to, make people realize that Biden is completely out to lunch.
Man, he made an appearance. He at least left the bunker yesterday, and he sounded so tired and so old and so just slow. And it's hard to believe he's going to go toe to toe with Trump on Tuesday. But
I think when you go talk to just like normal people about it, everybody acknowledges, how out of it he is. But because it kind of comes in short form clips on nightly news and stuff like that, maybe it doesn't hit him. So I think the debate in long form, like, 90 minutes or whatever it will be, is going to be a wake up call. That's what I would.
I hope. And hopefully Trump doesn't screw it up by doing it and getting too crazy. But he will say, he'll bring up Hunter. He will say, "Where's Hunter?" He's done it at a lot of these rallies. And where's Hunter? Because no one ever sees Hunter. He just sits somewhere. I think he's in L.A. Last time they caught him out in public, he was driving I think it was a Bentley or a Rolls Royce or something. I mean, he ain't.
The guy's just living his best life. Just nothing matters.
And he's got this new wife and, kids everywhere that he's got to support. And I don't think he's banging his brother's widow anymore. He's moved on from that. But what a scumbag. He's just the worst human being. And media has no interest in Hunter Biden. But anyway, we'll see. Tonight there'll be more civil unrest around the country. Hopefully no more cops get shot, but I wouldn't be surprised. It's going to get ugly. And then Saturday, Trump's going to name his Supreme Court nominee. Hopefully, I think it'll be Amy Coney Barrett. And then you'll have more civil unrest because, she's a Catholic and can't have that. She doesn't believe in abortion on demand. So we'll have more civil unrest, and that'll just roll right into Tuesday's debates. It's a fascinating time to be alive, Cullinane.
Yep, and we do have a basketball game tonight, so I assume that ESPN is going to be still in full emotional mode all day and through the weekend.
And get ready for Malika Andrews is going to just be the biggest star on Twitter because she cried because the cops didn't get indicted for murder. She cried because she's almost the same age as Breonna Taylor. And she cried because the system is racist, and she's 25 years old, a full-time reporter at ESPN covering the NBA. Well, she shall overcome, hopefully. But anyway, thanks to Turtleboy, and thanks to DCU and Shea Concrete and Ally Paving and Raycon and all our wonderful sponsors. Thanks, Cullinane. Anything else?
That is all. That's all. We're not back till Monday. I keep forgetting it's Thursday. So
I'm working on some things. We might be back. I'm working on some things.
Oh boy, you're gonna tell me about that, or
let me know. I was gonna tell you if I had any luck, but I will let you know. But all right, I'm Jerry Callahan. This is the Callahan Podcast, and we will talk to you again soon.